It's easy to forget how wonderful routines are until you take a break from them for several days. Today, I'm going to be chatting about the benefits of a routine as I do several things to help us jump back into our normal daily rhythm. Thanks so much for joining me today. It can be difficult to be out of your normal routine, and as much as we enjoy time off from the normal day-to-day, it can be so comforting whenever we finally get back to the daily rhythm that we are used to. Isn't it funny though how even though it is more work to get back into a routine and to complete all the tasks that need to be done on a day-to-day basis, that eventually we would rather get back to those more difficult routines and schedules because it brings a calmness to our lives. When we don't have a routine, it brings much more chaos, and as humans, we long for order. Some of us more than others, but to some degree, I think we all do long for a somewhat predictable routine. Today is our last day before we start back up with homeschool, so I'm trying to get as much done today as I can. So I'm starting out by making a healthier treat to help us transition from all the sweets around the holidays. We call these cookie balls or energy balls. There's lots of different names out there for them, but they have oats, unsweetened coconut, flaxseed, peanut butter, honey, vanilla, and some mini M&Ms. We love to have something sweet after meals, and it's also a great way to help motivate my kids to eat all of their food on their plate because they will get a small treat afterwards. These are so yummy that my kids don't even realize that they are eating a healthy treat. I think it's probably the M&Ms that make these so exciting. You could easily make them healthier by swapping out the M&Ms for dark chocolate chips. I've seen lots of different variations out there using white chocolate chips or adding in some cocoa powder to make it even more of a chocolate flavor, but nonetheless, they are a much healthier treat than eating cookies or pie or any of the desserts that we have been blessed with over the holidays. As much as we enjoyed them, it's definitely time to get back to our normal eating routine. Something that I've been out of the habit of making is water kefir. I let my first set of grains die, and I wish I hadn't forgotten about them and I had put them on hold in the fridge, but I didn't, so I got some more grains off Amazon from Cultures for Health. I'm getting the grains rehydrated, but it takes a few days for them to rehydrate, so we won't be able to enjoy the bubbly drink until next week sometime. Kefir is not really a hard thing to make, but it's just like any other homemaking task. It takes consistent effort. Most chores around the home are constant, like dishes and laundry and cleaning, cooking, decluttering. It's hard to get back into the cycle of all these chores after the holidays. It's like once you have momentum, it's much easier just to keep doing them. It takes less time to just keep doing the chores than to stop and have to get caught back up. I really like this quote that I found from Brian J. White that says, "Don't get bogged down with all the details of how it's going to come together. Just do the dishes and watch the momentum build." I really like this. You truly cannot focus on all of the things that need to be done. It's exhausting to our minds and will just cause us to never feel the satisfaction of the accomplishments that we have made. You just have to start somewhere with one task, and then the next, and then the next. In the home, many times tasks will overlap. Like you start a load of laundry, and while it washes, you fix lunch and you eat. Then you switch the load to the dryer, and while it dries, you load the dishes in the dishwasher. While that's washing, then you can tidy up the bedroom and start some meal prep for dinner. But trying to go to bed with the next day in mind, having a perfect plan for how all of your tasks are going to get accomplished, that's just not realistic, and you just have to start somewhere and be flexible as the day goes. I mean, I love to plan, so I understand wanting to have everything planned out, but you're going to get discouraged whenever your plan doesn't align exactly the way that you wanted it to. One thing I like to do whenever I feel like my house is a mess is to make my bed. It makes me feel better, and every time I walk by, it gives me even more motivation to get things done. It makes the room look pretty and makes me want to keep working, so the rest of the house will look that way too. Now, I'm not really entirely sure why I wanted to do this today, but I decided to deep clean my stand mixer. This has been one of my most used and favorite kitchen tools. I've had it since my husband and I got married, and that's been almost 9 years now, which is hard to believe. I use my mixer weekly, usually every few days, if not every day. It just kind of depends on what I'm doing in the kitchen that week. So it gets a lot of use, and it gets pretty dirty, and I don't actually wipe it down every time that I use it like I should, so the gunk builds up, and I'm really showing it some love and getting it cleaned up real good. I mostly use my mixer for making bread, which I do a lot on this channel, but I also use it for other things too. It's great for shredding chicken, mixing meatloaf, shredding cheese, making cookies, whipping cream. There's so many attachments that you can make even more things too. Oh, these little cord holders on the back of the KitchenAid mixer that you can see, I love these things. They are amazing for keeping your cord all organized and not hanging all over your counter. You just peel off the sticky part, stick it on your machine or whatever appliance it is that you're wanting to organize your cord on, wrap your cord around it, and it has a little spot where you can pop the cord in so it stays put. I love that it keeps my cords nice and tidy. So today for lunch, we are having leftover taco soup. I like to have leftovers for lunch a lot, and if you have been following along on my videos, you might remember that I have been on the hunt for the perfect tablecloth. I bought one at Hobby Lobby, but it didn't fit right, so I took it back. I ordered one off Amazon. It fit perfectly, but when I washed it, it shrunk. So then I ordered that same one, but in a larger size, thinking, oh, even if it does shrink, it'll be okay, it'll still fit. Nope, I washed it and it was still too small. It's a pretty large table, so I was having trouble finding one that was big enough that I liked. So I just bought a canvas drop cloth, and I plan to hem it and sew a ruffled bottom around the edge. We've just been using it as it is for now, but with kids it has to be washed pretty often, and I let some of the stains kind of sit for a while, so I'm gonna put my favorite DIY stain remover on them and get it washed. To make it, I just mix baking soda, Blue Dawn dish soap, and hydrogen peroxide together to make a paste, and just rub it on the stains with an old toothbrush. Just depending on the stain, you might want to let it sit overnight or just do a soak in the washing machine. I now use this stain remover exclusively. I first learned about it whenever my oldest was a little over a year old, I think, and he was constantly getting stains on his clothes, and the Dreft spray that we used was just not cutting it anymore. I typically look and see if there is a make-it-yourself option out there before I go buy anything new, just because I'm pretty frugal and I don't want to spend money if I can make it with things I already have at home. So I found this stain remover and have not looked back. It takes out almost every stain that you can imagine. Well, except for ink pen, but for that you can use hairspray. That's another conversation for another day. But anyway, now I get it in the washing machine. I put it on a soak cycle on super hot. I do add some bleach just because I want to make sure that the stains get out. Alright, I do have on a different shirt, but it is still the same day. We went to Sam's Club and Kroger this afternoon, and I picked up some groceries at Kroger. They had some bananas on reduced price, so I grabbed them so we could make banana nut muffins. This is one of my favorite breakfasts and snacks for me and my kids, so I knew that it would be helpful to have some homemade muffins on hand this week to make breakfast and snacks easier as we try to get back into our routine. I'm getting this dough mixed up the night before because I want to allow it to ferment overnight so that we can get the most health benefits from it. I'm using a potato flake sourdough starter to make this recipe, and I have several potato flake sourdough recipes over on my blog, and I'll link that below. I really enjoy making different breads using this starter, even though it does add another task to my routine. I just love having a hobby that is also useful and productive. But routines are so helpful to our minds. When our brains know what to expect, it removes a lot of stress and can reduce anxiety. But when our brains are uncertain and don't know what to expect, it engages the fight, flight, or freeze response. Whenever we have routines, we can think clearer and we don't have to process as much information, which makes it easier to make decisions. And let me just say, as a mom, I need all the help that I can get when it comes to making decisions easier. Now I'm working on another dough. It is kolache dough. I'm gonna let it also rise tonight. My husband grew up in Texas and loved getting sausage and cheese kolaches at the donut shop in his hometown. Since I knew how much he loved them, I figured I could come up with a way to make them at home so that he could have them more often. Now that I figured out how to make them, we love to have them already made up and in the fridge just to pop in the microwave to have for breakfast. This is another recipe that you would be able to find on my blog, but it is not up just yet whenever this video comes out. So check back and I'll add the link as soon as I get the recipe written up. Fitting my blog and YouTube videos in my routine also adds another challenge, but it's something that I find so rewarding in being able to have a creative outlet and get to share with others things that I've learned. It's funny because sometimes I don't feel like I'm old enough to have enough experience or to be qualified to teach things to others, but then I realize I have been a wife and keeping the home for almost 9 years now, and I've been cooking since I was 7, and even though I still feel very new to it all, I know that I have learned lots of things from others, and I'm happy to get to share that with others as well. You know, God didn't intend for us to learn everything on our own. That's why He gave us the Bible, so that we could learn from others. We have each other to learn from, and I'm so thankful that He designed it that way. Maybe someone will learn something from me sooner than I learned it, and then we can all help each other become better by learning from others. We always have room to grow, and I love that making videos and writing on my blog helps push me to grow in many ways. So it's the next morning, and I get started on my banana muffins, and yes, I'm wearing the same sweatshirt, so let's just be real honest. I know I'm not the only one who wears the same thing multiple days in a row, especially if it passes the sniff test. There's just too much laundry to wash perfectly fine clothes that can be worn again. Now in the summer, that's a bit of a different story, but in the cooler months, I take full advantage of wearing clothes as many times as I can so that I don't have as many things to wash. These banana nut muffins are much easier to make if you have a stand mixer, because trying to add the rest of the ingredients by hand after the flour has already fermented makes it much harder to incorporate. I actually forgot to mix this dough in my stand mixer bowl to begin with, so I'm going to mix it in my stand mixer in this bowl, but I would not advise doing this. Thankfully, this bowl is pretty much the perfect size and doesn't get knocked around too much, but I have done this with other bowls that don't go with my stand mixer, and I'm always scared that they're going to get slung off my counter, so I try not to do this very often. Kind of just being lazy and not wanting to have extra dishes to wash, so that's why I do this. But I add some of the last minute ingredients to the banana bread in the morning, like bananas, the cinnamon, salt, baking soda, and vanilla. I don't want to add those in while the flour is fermenting, just because I don't think that it would work as well. So that's why I do it the next morning. I love to add chopped walnuts to these muffins, and honestly, I would really love the walnuts to be hardly chopped at all. I like a big bite of walnuts, but one of my little boys hates the nuts. So I tried to chop them, or I guess beat them with a hammer or the mallet. I guess it's not a hammer. We call it the kitchen hammer to my kids. But I tried to make them a bit smaller this time so it wouldn't be as noticeable, but he still didn't like the nuts. So next time I'll probably just use some different muffin liners for his muffins and scoop some batter for those out before I add the nuts. I bought these parchment paper cupcake liners before Christmas, thinking I might use them to make some things to give treats to others, but I didn't get around to doing that. And I love these cupcake liners. I guess muffin liners, whatever you want to call them. I don't really like using the paper ones because you still have to spray them anyway with oil to keep them from sticking. So I wanted to give these a try, and they are great. They don't stick to the muffins even though I didn't spray them, and the only thing that I don't actually like about them is how high they stick up, which makes it kind of hard to scoop things in without making a mess. Even though they look pretty, I just would rather them to be a bit shorter. So if you have a favorite muffin liner that you like, please let me know in the comments below. I have tried using the silicone, but that's just another thing that I have to wash, and many times we will eat these on the go, and I don't want to keep up with the silicone liner and make sure that it gets back home and washed and put away. After the muffins finish, I get started on the kolaches. It can be somewhat of a tedious task, and over the holidays we made these, and I was so thankful that my sister-in-law was here. She helped me wrap up all the kolaches, and not only was it faster, but it was nice to have someone to chat with while we were working on them. If you have never had a kolache, it's kind of similar to a pigs in a blanket. It's made with an enriched dough, which basically just means that it has eggs and milk in the dough, and the dough is wrapped around smoked sausage and cheese and baked until it's done. There are variations like adding jalapeno or other add-ins. They are a super delicious breakfast, and they're perfect for heating up and taking on the go. I typically am eating on the go a lot around the house, even if we're not leaving, just because I'm always trying to get something done. Breakfast is usually a time whenever we don't all sit down at the table and eat together. We all wake up at different times, and therefore we all eat at different times. As soon as I'm up and I have my coffee, we usually jump right into school for the day. So I try to eat something that is easy to eat while also instructing my oldest, entertaining the middle, and feeding my youngest. And even though that sounds a bit chaotic, and it is, but it's a routine we are all familiar with, and everyone knows what to expect for our mornings. Having this routine, even though we don't follow a time schedule, helps us because they're able to focus better on school instead of what the routine might be. Having routines helps us focus, helps us maintain attention. This is true for children, but for me as well. Knowing that as soon as we get up, we start our day with school, this helps keep the guesswork out of what are we going to do when we wake up. Now, while the kolaches finish cooking, I am working on fixing our sink that has bothered me since we moved into this house a few years ago. There are these little metal caps that fill the holes where the old sink faucet went. It was like this whenever we moved in, but they did not seal it properly, and it allows water to run down to underneath my sink. My husband had fixed it with plumber's putty, but that has dried out and wasn't sealed anymore and was still letting water drip down, so I finally decided to fix it. I naively thought that I could fix it with hot glue, but very quickly realized that the idea wasn't going to work, so I had my husband run out to the shop, get some clear silicone caulk. I put the caulk on, cleaned off the extra that squished out around it. It said to not let it get wet for 24 hours, which is going to be difficult at a sink, so I decided the best way to keep it from getting wet is to cover it with a piece of plastic. So I took a Walmart bag and cut it to the size that I needed, taped it off with some painter's tape, and that will prevent it from getting wet or water splashing on it while I do the dishes, because you've got to be able to use a sink in a kitchen. So I took it off the next day and it is working perfectly. This was one of those things that has bothered me so much, but it didn't really take hardly any time to fix, so I really wish that I had just taken the few minutes to fix it sooner. We had a few packages come in today. I was really looking forward to getting my new watch band because my old one broke, and I have been using my husband's old watch band, which is too big, and I was really excited about also getting a special iPad case that works with the Osmo game for the iPad. A part of the case will pop back so that the camera piece can attach onto the iPad. And I just feel so much better having a case on there, and the kids use the Osmo on such a regular basis, so it was a pain to have to take the regular case off and on all the time because I didn't want to just leave it without a case. The Osmo is a really great iPad game. So if you have never heard of it, you basically have this mat that sits in front of the iPad, and there's a piece that attaches to the camera that can see what the kids are doing on this pad. There's special games and manipulatives that go along with it, and the kids really love it. It's a hands-on, it's educational. There are a lot of different games out there that you can do. You can draw, you can do coding, there are racing games. There's like so many things out there. We don't have them all, but the boys have really enjoyed playing the games that they were gifted for Christmas this year, and so I'm going to be adding it to our routine for part of their learning time. Thank you so much for watching today as I take you along during a couple days of some of our routines. I really hope that it's been an inspiration to you and motivates you to keep the momentum going in your routines. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll make more videos like this. So glad that you stopped by. See you again soon.